It happened in less than 30 seconds. A respected CEO pointed toward the company gate, accused her quiet driver of wearing stolen military medals, called him a fraud in front of hundreds of employees, and fired him on the spot. Moments later, 4 black SUVs rolled through the entrance. 40 Navy SEALs stepped out in perfect formation, came to attention without a single command being spoken, and saluted the man everyone had just humiliated. In the silence that followed, the truth shattered every assumption in the courtyard. Before we continue, if you believe that kindness is stronger than pride, that forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds, and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our community. The headquarters of Halstead Marine Technology stood beside a busy harbor where ships, cranes, and ocean winds reminded everyone that precision and discipline mattered. The company's young CEO, Meredith Caldwell, had spent 6 years rebuilding the business after her father passed away. Investors admired her determination, employees respected her intelligence, but very few knew how lonely success had become. She trusted numbers more than people because the people closest to her had betrayed her after her father's death. Every decision she made was guided by caution, efficiency, and a constant fear of being deceived again. 3 months earlier, the company had hired a temporary driver through an executive transportation agency. His name was Graham Mercer. He was in his early 60s, carried himself with quiet confidence, spoke only when necessary, and always arrived exactly 15 minutes early. His uniform was spotless, his driving flawless, and his patience endless. He never boasted about himself. He never mentioned his past unless someone asked directly. Even then, he simply said he had once served in the military and preferred not to discuss it. Most employees assumed he had exaggerated his service record. After all, many people claimed to have been soldiers. Graham never corrected anyone. Every morning he greeted the security guards by name. He carried groceries for an elderly receptionist whose arthritis made lifting difficult. He repaired a young intern's flat tire during lunch without accepting payment. Whenever someone thanked him, he simply smiled and said that helping others had become a habit long ago. Meredith noticed his professionalism but rarely paid attention beyond that. To her, he was simply another employee doing his job. Everything changed during the company's annual Veterans Appreciation Ceremony. The company invited local veterans to receive recognition for their service. Employees decorated the courtyard with American flags while reporters gathered near the stage. Meredith wanted the event to improve the company's public image while honoring military families. As she walked toward the stage, she noticed Graham standing quietly near the executive vehicle. He wore a neatly pressed jacket displaying several military ribbons and a small insignia above his pocket. One of the executives leaned toward Meredith and whispered that the decorations looked too impressive for an ordinary driver. Another manager joked that anyone could buy medals online. Those careless words planted doubt. Meredith walked directly toward Graham and demanded proof that the medals belonged to him. Graham calmly explained that he had been invited by one of the veterans attending the ceremony and had simply worn the decorations that he had earned decades earlier. His calmness irritated Meredith. Believing she was protecting the company's reputation from possible embarrassment, she publicly accused him of pretending to be a decorated soldier. Without verifying a single fact, she removed his employee identification badge and terminated his employment in front of everyone. The crowd watched in uncomfortable silence. Graham never argued. He slowly removed the company keys from his pocket, placed them in Meredith's hand, thanked her for the opportunity to work there, and quietly stepped away. Then the SUVs arrived. The gates opened as military escorts entered the property with unmistakable precision. 40 Navy SEALs, wearing formal uniforms for the veterans ceremony, exited the vehicles together. Every one of them ignored the stage. Every one of them walked directly toward Graham. Without hesitation, they stopped several feet away, stood perfectly straight, and raised their hands in salute. The senior officer stepped forward carrying a polished wooden presentation case. He announced that Commander Graham Mercer had been personally invited to receive a Lifetime Leadership Award recognizing extraordinary service, sacrifice, and the rescue missions that had saved countless American lives. Many of the men standing there had once served under his command. Several openly admitted they would not be alive without him. The courtyard became completely silent. Employees stared at Meredith. Reporters lowered their cameras for a moment, stunned by what they had witnessed. Only then did Meredith realize that the quiet man she had dismissed as an ordinary driver had once commanded one of the most respected special operations units in military history. Yet Graham never smiled with satisfaction. He looked almost embarrassed by the attention. When the applause finally began, he simply accepted the award, thanked his former teammates, and reminded them that the greatest victories always belong to the entire team rather than one individual. His humility somehow made Meredith feel even smaller. News spread across the country before lunchtime. Television stations replayed the public firing beside the unexpected military salute. Online commentators criticized Meredith's judgment, while veterans praised Graham's grace under humiliation. The company's stock price dropped by the afternoon. Investors demanded explanations. Board members questioned Meredith's leadership. For the first time since becoming CEO, she realized that intelligence without humility could become dangerous. She requested a meeting with Graham immediately. He agreed to meet her the following afternoon at a small waterfront park where retired sailors often gathered to watch passing ships. Meredith expected anger. Instead, she found Graham feeding birds with pieces of bread while smiling at children playing nearby. His peaceful expression made her regret everything even more. She apologized sincerely. She admitted that fear of dishonesty had blinded her to genuine character. She confessed that after years of betrayal, she had begun assuming the worst about people before giving them the chance to prove themselves. Graham listened patiently. He explained that leadership was never measured by how confidently someone judged others but by how carefully they sought the truth before making decisions that affected lives. He admitted that being publicly humiliated had hurt. Not because of his reputation, but because dozens of younger employees had witnessed someone being condemned without evidence. He hoped they would someday learn a better example. Those words stayed with Meredith. Rather than defending herself, she asked one difficult question. How could someone who had commanded elite soldiers choose to become an ordinary company driver? Graham smiled gently. After retiring, he had discovered that titles disappeared much faster than purpose. He missed serving people. Driving executives allowed him to observe leadership from a different perspective while quietly helping others whenever possible. He wanted a simple life where nobody saluted him anymore. The irony was impossible to ignore. The only person obsessed with his title had been Meredith herself. During the following weeks, Meredith made changes throughout the company. Managers could no longer discipline employees publicly without proper investigation. Anonymous complaints required evidence before action. Leadership training shifted away from authority and toward empathy. Executives spent one day every month working alongside maintenance staff, drivers, receptionists, and warehouse employees to better understand the people who kept the company running. Many resisted. Some complained. But gradually the culture changed. People smiled more. Departments cooperated instead of competing. Employee turnover dropped dramatically. Meanwhile, Graham quietly returned, not because he needed the job, but because Meredith convinced the board to create a leadership mentorship position designed to train young managers. His office remained simple. No medals decorated the walls. No military photographs filled shelves. Instead, visitors found handwritten thank you letters from former employees whose lives had improved because someone finally believed in them. One afternoon a young supervisor named Owen made a costly shipping mistake that threatened an important contract. Terrified of losing his job, he admitted the error before anyone discovered it. Months earlier he would certainly have been fired. Instead, Meredith remembered her own failure. She investigated calmly, corrected the problem, and worked with Owen to prevent similar mistakes in the future. The contract was eventually saved. More importantly, Owen became one of the company's most trusted managers because someone had chosen correction over humiliation. The lesson spread through every department. Years later, during another Veterans Appreciation ceremony held under bright afternoon sunshine, the atmosphere felt completely different. Employees no longer judged appearances. Maintenance workers sat beside executives. Receptionists stood beside board members. Every guest received equal respect. Meredith stood before the crowd and spoke honestly about the greatest mistake of her career. She admitted that pride had once convinced her she could recognize truth instantly. She had learned instead that character often wears ordinary clothes, drives ordinary cars, and quietly changes lives without asking for recognition. When she invited Graham onto the stage, he looked just as uncomfortable with public attention as before. The applause lasted several minutes. Not because of his medals. Not because of his military achievements. But because everyone now understood the extraordinary strength it had taken for him to answer humiliation with dignity instead of revenge. As the ceremony ended, dozens of young employees surrounded Graham asking not about combat, weapons, or secret missions, but about leadership, forgiveness, patience, and courage. He answered every question with the same quiet humility that had defined his life. He reminded them that the strongest people were rarely the loudest. Real strength appeared when someone had every reason to seek revenge but instead chose wisdom. Real honor came from protecting the dignity of others, especially when nobody else was watching. Meredith watched from a distance with tears in her eyes. She finally understood that companies were not built by buildings or profits. They were built by people. And people flourished only where respect came before judgment. Before this story comes to its close, take a moment to leave a meaningful comment and tell us what lesson stayed with you the most. Have you ever been judged unfairly, or have you ever realized you judged someone too quickly? Your words may encourage someone else who needs hope today. As the afternoon sun reflected across the calm water, Graham quietly walked away from the applause exactly as he had always done, never chasing recognition and never measuring his worth by titles. Meredith remained standing among her employees, no longer separated by pride but united by humility. She had lost a driver for a single painful afternoon, but she had gained a teacher whose greatest victory had never happened on a battlefield. It had happened in the human heart, where forgiveness defeated arrogance, truth overcame assumption, and compassion proved stronger than power. The company prospered, friendships deepened, and every person who had witnessed that unforgettable day carried the lesson into their own lives: never underestimate the quiet soul, never confuse humility with weakness, and never make a judgment before seeking the truth. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May we all choose kindness before judgment, humility before pride, and forgiveness before resentment, because sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who never ask to be recognized.